For NYUpSyracuse.com, I am Matt Parrino, joined by Ryan Talbot, and we are moving right along in our prospect previews here as we discuss some of the top targets that the Buffalo Bills might be looking at number 9. Brandon Beane said this week that he likes it, that out in the the media and the mock draft world, there's a lot of names floating around, so it's hard to target in on exactly what Brandon Beane and his staff are thinking for that number 9 pick, but I really think there's so many different ways they can go with this selection, and one of those potential players is offensive lineman Jonah Williams from Alabama, played left tackle for them this past season, but some experts are projecting him more at guard. Daniel Jeremiah from NFL.com is one of them, has him ranked as his 15th best prospect in the draft this year and has him projected as a guard. I mean, Ryan, what are your thoughts there? Because obviously there's some issues with the arm length some people have, but Jonah Williams seems very confident that he can play left tackle in the NFL.
Well, it kind of actually reminds me a little bit of Deion Dawkins, because when he was coming onto the draft, there were a lot of people that projected him as a guard at the next level in the NFL. But he's played tackle in his first 2 seasons. His rookie year, he had a lot of success. He took a little bit of a step back this year, but you can't necessarily trust the projections in terms of where they see these prospects playing. Because Williams deserves that opportunity to play tackle first and foremost. He's been successful at it. He seems to be motivated by this talk. I've heard him already say in a few pre-draft interviews that he plans on proving that he's the best tackle on this draft class, not necessarily the best guard. And he's even said there are some people that said they think he can play at center. But I think if anything, he's a guy that if you draft him in round 1, you need to give him the opportunity to win the tackle job first. And as a fallback, well, yeah, you can move him to guard if it doesn't work out there. So that's kind of the beauty of Jonah Williams, is his versatility.
I think Jonah Williams is the perfect example of a player that over the course of these few months from the end of the college football season till the actual NFL draft, I mean, you got about 4 or 5 months there of people that all they do is study this process to tinker, right? I mean, it's one of the the biggest things in sports is tinkering with lineups, tinkering with how things work on the field or on the court. And I think that's what's happening in the draft world is there's a lot of tinkering going on, and I think people are forgetting. This was one of the best offensive linemen in college football. I mean, if you go and watch the tape, from everybody that has exhausted Jonah Williams' tapes, they say that his performance on the field stands up, and he projects as an elite-level offensive lineman at the next level. You're looking at it from a Bills perspective. Jonah Williams went to Alabama. There's obviously that Brian Daboll connection, but he's also a guy that seems to have a great deal of maturity, a guy that could come in right away. You could trust that he's not only going to be putting his work in on the field, but also off the field, in the film room, in the weight room. A guy that I think that from getting a chance to talk to him for a few minutes at the NFL Combine, he seems like a guy that from a character perspective, from a personality perspective, would fit right in with what Sean McDermott's trying to do with the Bills.
Yeah, from a culture standpoint, he fits in. From a coaching standpoint, he fits in, like you mentioned, because of his relationship with Brian Daboll. And that's the other thing. Some people have said, well, how come he doesn't come in for a pre-draft visit? Well, one, he's a pretty clean prospect overall. But two, Daboll already knows the guy. He coached him for a year. He knows the work ethic. He knows how much effort and time he puts into his craft. So I was not surprised by the fact that he wasn't an announced pre-draft visitor. So I'm sure the Bills have done their due diligence on him. I'm sure that he fits exactly what they're looking for. It just comes down to whether or not he's the best player available at pick 9.
Mm-hmm. I think the Bills are hoping, that people aren't in on the secret with Jonah Williams. I mean, there's some mock drafts early on. He was going as high as number 3 to the Jets. A guy that, could be a day 1 starter, and there's a lot of talk about maybe the Bills potentially moving down and gaining some assets, maybe moving up. But if they have Jonah Williams, notched as the best player available at 9, I think it's not too much of a stretch to see them go after him because, listen, you listen to, like you said, you listen to the things that are coming out of his mouth, the way that he's talking about what this whole process has done in motivating him. And that's what Sean McDermott wants. He wants people that are coming motivated, wanting to get better, wanting to prove people wrong, wanting to be that underdog. And he also could potentially offer you position flex, a guy that could come in here, compete for a tackle job. If they find out that he's going to be more impactful on the inside of the offensive line, you move him to guard, you keep Deion Dawkins at left tackle, and you still get one of the premier prospects in this draft.
Yeah, exactly like you said. And, obviously as a rookie, I think he gets the opportunity at tackle, but long term, if the Bills are trying to build something where they have protection in front of Josh Allen, where they have protection for whoever their heir apparent is at running back behind McCoy and Gore long term, that's a great situation to be in, where you can have Dawkins and you can have Quentin Spain there if maybe he lasts more than 1 year, or you can have Jonah Williams there, and you already have Mitch Moore signed long term. All of a sudden, you have your left side locked down. You can kind of add to that right side. Obviously, Nsekhe isn't a long-term option. On that other side, there's still some questions about who will win the right guard job. But the Bills have put a lot of money, a lot of effort into upgrading their offensive line, and I think it's going to pay off this year. And long-term, if they take a guy like Jonah Williams, well, I think you're going to see that Josh Allen will be well protected as he grows and as he starts to enter his prime here in these next few years.
And one last point I wanted to make on Jonah Williams here is I've seen a lot of recent draft stock on the rise here for Washington State's Andre Dillard, pure left tackle, a guy known for his pass protection, struggles quite a bit. The anticipation is he's going to struggle quite a bit in run blocking because they didn't do a whole ton of that at Washington State. And, I met him at the Senior Bowl. I talked to him. I really enjoyed my time with him. But I think at number 9, I think that's a little bit high for a guy that could be limited in one area of the game, because Jonah Williams has had some kind of, there's been some concerns about the arm length and the lack thereof. He's had to go out of his way to learn how to block. I read a story earlier tonight about his ability to kind of get inside on defensive tackle or defensive ends. And I think that's something that's an interesting part of his game, that he's already, before he's even gotten to that next level, started to develop the traits to excel as a pass blocker and as a run blocker, kind of understand his limitations and continue to develop in spite of them. And I think that's another thing that this regime is going to look at and like. All right, that's everything that we're going to discuss on Jonah Williams. Guys, for all your Buffalo Bills content, as always, keep it locked into NYUp, Syracuse.com.